Hello everyone, welcome to OMG230 Introduction to Supply Chain Management. So this is an overview class for operations supply chain management. You are going to learn more advanced knowledge in OMG322 operations management and OMG430 supply chain management. So I will keep this class simple and conceptual. So I hope you will find this class interesting. So the learning objective, you are going to describe a supply chain, what is supply chain management, and you are going to know what are elements of supply chain management, and what are global supply chains, and what are the trends of supply chain management. So I'm not going to help you read this textbook because that's your responsibility to read the textbook. I just want to summarize some key issues about these chapters. So on the last session, I will introduce the job market of supply chain management and the design of a global supply chain management concentration at CSUDH. Okay, this is the chapter outlines. You can read. What is supply chain management? A supply chain consists of a flow of product and service, including raw materials, component and intermediate manufacturers, final product manufacturing, wholesaler, retailers, and finally customers. So they are connected by transportation and logistics. So in supply chain management, we focus a lot in integrations. How to integrate all the elements of supply chain in companies. Okay, so in the past, we focus on vertical integrated, but now we focus on relationship between supply chain partners and the manufacturers. So we are going to talk more about it in this class. So this is a very important figure about supply chain management. So what are the elements of supply chain management? So if you are a focal firm, which is manufacturers, so who are your suppliers? We call this first tier suppliers. The first tier suppliers, they are the suppliers for the intermediate components. And the suppliers of suppliers, we call them second tier suppliers. So they are the suppliers of our direct suppliers. Okay, so they supply the raw materials to our suppliers, and our suppliers have some processing activities, convert them to intermediate components. Then we receive their supply. Okay, so these are supply side. So this is one element of supply chain management, supply. After we receive all raw materials, components, we have manufacturing activities. So this is the second element in supply chain management, operations. Then we send the finished goods to wholesalers, distributors. We call them first tier customers. So they are our customers. This is first tier customers. Then the customers of customers, we call them second tier customers. They can be retailers or end users. Okay, so this is the third element of supply chain. Okay, so we have supply, we have operations, we have logistics. Then these are three elements of supply chain management. Then the fourth element is integrations. So we want to integrate information flow and cash flow and the physical distribution flow or physical distribution flow. Okay, so we call that integrations. So that's the fourth element in supply chain management. So we can have a forward flow from raw materials to finished goods to customers. So it's the physical flow of product and service. This is a forward flow. But we can have reverse flow. We call that the recycling and the returns. If you include repair, we call that 3R in supply chain: recycle, return, and repair. Okay, so this is a very important framework of supply chain. So in Dominguez Hills, we have global supply chain management concentration. It was logistics and supply chain management concentration in the past, but starting from fall 2017, we have a new framework. Okay, let me introduce the framework. The framework consists of the elements of the supply chain. So I want to help you to memorize the elements of supply chain. So this is S, C, and N. You can call that supply chain management, but each letters can represent another word. S, you can call that sourcing, the supply element. Where are the raw material from? Okay, S is sourcing. C is converting. So you convert raw materials into finished goods. So you can call that converting. And the logistics, that is moving. How do you move finished goods from manufacturers to customers? So that's moving. So it's easier to remember the definition of supply chain. It's sourcing, converting, and moving. Then lastly, we have SCM, integrated. So how to integrate SC and M in the supply chain management? Okay, so that's the framework of our concentration. And the feature of the concentration is we have technology components. So we have technology to help managers to manage the supply chain. So this is a framework of our concentration. For sourcing, you need to take the required course in OMG230 Purchasing Management. For operations or converting, you need to take course in 427 Business Process Improvement. It was Quality Management, and we changed the name to Business Process Improvement. And you can also take another elective course in Project Management. For moving, you need to take Logistics Management. For integrated, now you are taking the entry level of supply chain management class. So we call it OMG230 Introduction to Supply Chain Management. Then you need to take business analytics, how to analyze the data, and also OMG430 ERP and SCM cases. For technology, so you need to choose 2 from the 3 elective courses. Okay, so that's the feature of our concentration. So you can easily get a good job related to supply chain if you know all of this. So what is supply chain management? So we have 3 different definitions from 3 important supply chain institutes. Okay, so the definition is a little bit different. However, you need to remember who are the most supply chain management institute in America. So the first one is CSCMP, Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. Another is ISM, Institute for Supply Management. The last one is APICS, EPICS, Association for Operations Management. Okay, so what's the definition for supply chain? So CSCMP defines supply chain management as a coordination and integration of all supply chain elements, including sourcing, procurement, conversions, logistics. Right? That's very similar to what we said earlier. So how to coordinate the supply chain partners, okay, to conduct sourcing, operations, and logistics. Okay, so ISM and APICS, you can read the slide. I don't need to read for you. So what is supply chain management? So the old paradigm focused on the synergy of a vertically integrated firm encompassing the ownership and coordination of several supply chain activities. and they focus on the short term and the company focused performance. But the new paradigm for supply chain management focus on the activities in the area you are specialized with. So if you are good at manufacturing, then do a good job in manufacturing. Then you need to have a trust base and a voluntary relationship with suppliers and your customers. So in the new paradigm, you need to make sure all participants in the supply chain benefit. So you don't focus on your own profit, but you also want to help the participant in the supply chain be helpful, be successful. Okay. So the boundary are dynamic. So in the past, we just focus on our direct supplier and the customers. Now, we want to extend the boundary to suppliers, and also to customers. So now we have a bigger picture of the supply chain. Okay, from suppliers to the customers. Also, we include reverse logistics. Okay, so now is the whole picture for supply chain management. So why supply chain management is important? Okay, so how do you make sure all participants in supply chain benefit? So you need to share a lot of information among supply chain, including your demand forecast, your production plans, and your marketing strategy and the technology, and what's your purchasing plan, what's your delivery date. So you need to share all the information with your suppliers, with your customers, so you can work together to have a successful and effective supply chain. Okay, so firms using supply chain management, they start with key suppliers, then they move to other suppliers, customers, and logistics providers. They integrate the second tier suppliers and customers in their supply chain. So why do we need supply chain management? Of course, you want to reduce cost. You want to have more profit. So you need to reduce cost and increase revenue. That's how you have more profit. Okay, so how to reduce cost? So why do you need to work with your supply chain partners? You need to know what is bullwhip effect. Okay, so what is bullwhip effect? You can read the textbook. We have an entire chapter 14, to explain what is bullwhip effect and how to reduce bullwhip effect. And also in the appendix of chapter 1, so you have appendix chapter called the beer game. So beer game is related to bullwhip effect. So you can read that chapter. Okay, but we will explain bullwhip effect in chapter 14. So you will have better ideas at that time. So the origins of supply chain management. So this is the history of supply chain management. So this is very important for supply chain, because so this is the evolution of supply chain management. Okay, and you will know why supply chain management is important and why supply chain management is different from traditional operations management. Okay, so in 1950 to 1960, we focused on traditional mass manufacturing. So at that time, so US manufacturers focused on mass production. So how to make a huge quantity of product. So at that time, people focus on manufacturing. So they want to make sure the production line won't shut down because of the lack of supplies and the components. So at that time, people keep a lot of inventories as buffer for operations. So at that time, people want to make sure they have large quantity in productions. So inventory is a lot. So in 1960s and the 70s, people start to pay attention to the inventory levels. So because they have high inventory levels, and that is cost. Remember, inventory is your money, another form of your money. Before you sell inventories, you cannot get the money back. Okay, so people want to reduce the investment in inventories. So in 1960s and 70s, so we have MRP, Material Requirement Planning, and MRP2, Manufacturing Resource Planning. So the focus is to coordinate inventory management and improve internal communications. So if you know your demand, how do you convert the orders you received to the numbers of raw materials you need and when you need that? So through MRP and MRP2, you will have better ideas about when and how many raw materials you need. In 1980s and 1990s, so we have more competitions. So because we have intensive global competitions, so manufacturers start to pay more attention to quality in the supply chain. In 1982, actually that's the first time we used the term supply chain management. And at that time we have JIT, how to reduce inventory and how to improve quality and how to reduce cost. So we have JIT to reduce inventory and just in time to deliver based on the orders we receive. And we have total quality management, TQM. So we learned that from Japan. So we will talk more about that in the elements of operations. And because we want to integrate and redesign the process, so we have business process and re-engineering. We can reduce a lot of cost through re-engineering. So year 2000, actually that's the age of supply chain management. So in that time, so company focus on relationship, sustainability, and social responsibilities. And also we focus on 3PL, third-party logistics service providers. And we integrate logistics. And at that time, we have a lot of software designed for supply chain management. So like SAP. So you will learn SAP in OMG230 and like Oracle, okay, like I2. A lot of new solutions available starting from year 2000. So these are the elements, 4 elements of supply chain management. So in chapter 2 to 4, you will learn about supply management. So how to choose suppliers and how to evaluate the suppliers and how to work with your suppliers. And operations is the second element. So you will learn about inventory management, MRP, ERP, quality management, Six Sigma. In logistics management, the third element, you'll learn about how to design the distribution network and how to manage customers and how to manage global supply chain and how to choose transportation mode, air or ocean or intermode. Last one is integration. That's 2 chapters. So how to reduce the variations in supply chain, how to reduce risk. So I have introduced the 4 elements of supply chain management. The first one is supply elements. Second one, operations. Third one, logistics. Last one, integration. Okay, so what are the trends? So this is related to the discussion assignment, okay, this week. The first trend is reshoring. Okay, so in the past, so we know many firms outsource production to other countries like China, India, and Vietnam. So now firms are considering moving production back to US. So you can call that backshoring, nearshoring, reshoring, or right-shoring. A lot of different terminology. And so some contributors to this trend. So because And fuel cost is volatile. You cannot say it's always low or always high, but it changes a lot. And the labor costs are becomes more and more expensive in China and in other countries. So the difference between the labor costs in China and in US are decreasing. And the delivery time. So if the demand is more unpredictable, you want to reduce the delivery time. The last one, now Donald Trump becomes the president of America. And Donald Trump wants to keep all the productions in America. So he called for bringing jobs back to the US. Okay, so in the discussion this week, so you are going to discuss whether this will be a trend and what could be the challenge. For example, Apple is considering whether he want to keep the production of iPhone, iPad in the United States. What could be the challenge? Okay, think about it. And the second trend is risk. Okay, so there are more and more risk in supply chain. We call that supply chain disruptions. So like an earthquake, tsunami, war could affect your supply chain, and how to reduce the risk in global supply chain. So that's the second issue, second trend in supply chain management, manage the supply chain risk. The third one is how to increase supply chain visibilities. So now supply chain is more visible to firms, and how to track the shipments, inventories level, how to track deliveries, how to track return goods becomes an important issue in supply chain management. So of course, you need to do that through technology. So last part of this presentation is about the job market. So demand side analysis of supply chain management. So I did this research last year, and so I hope you will find this helpful. So what are the entry-level positions for supply chain management? So I categorized all the jobs by supply chain related, logistics related, and operations related. Okay, these are all the median salary. So I got this data from payscale.com, and this is the minimum degree required. So if you have the concentration in global supply chain management, so this could be your entry-level position. And some job, they have higher salary, like supply chain planners. Okay, so the salary is a little bit higher than other positions, but they require a certificate like a CPIN, CSCP. So this certificate are granted by the association I just mentioned, like a CSCMP, APEX, ISM. They have several certification programs. Okay, you can pay attention to that. And these are the popular employers for each positions. Okay. This one is important. So if you want to get a job in supply chain management, so what kind of skills you will need? The top skills you need is Excel. I'm not sure whether you know how to use Excel or not. I think most of you know how to use Excel, but it requires advanced level skills. Like in Excel, do you know how to use pivot table? Do you know VLOOKUP? Okay, so you need to have advanced skills in Excel. So if you know how to use Excel very well, it will be extremely helpful for you to get a job and higher salaries. The second one, data analysis. You need to know how to collect data, how to analyze data. Okay, and the rest are specific knowledge about supply chain and operations management. But the top skill you need is Excel. Okay, so please practice Excel as many as possible. So these are managerial position. So if you are promoted to be a manager, okay, so this could be your median salaries. This is a range of salaries. Okay. And the skills required. So if you want to get promoted to managers, Of course, Excel is the entry level. Okay, but if you want to get a promotion, you need to have higher level knowledge like operations management, logistics, inventory. So they are more specific. Okay, so these are the job market. So in the assignment, you need to interview 3 people. Okay, the 3 people need to have positions in supply chain management, could be purchasing, could be operations, could be logistics. Then you need to have more information about their position. Please read the slide. Okay, please read the informations on Blackboard. Okay, and finish it by Friday. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this class. This is Introduction to Supply Chain Management, Chapter 1. Bye.